Hey everyone, and welcome to this time-lapse video. I am very grateful for Clip Studio to have featured such a wonderful asset, as I do like to show how I go about constructing these illustrations. The first one I have here is the test, the actual first time-lapse recording I did with the new feature added. When I read the news that time-lapse was added to the new update, it reminded me of when I started off really pushing hard with my digital painting with Open Canvas version 1.1. It also had a recording feature, but it doesn't have full playback like this, so you're not seeing everything that's going on. A lot of the time what you see on this time-lapse recording is just the info input onto the canvas, and it doesn't show you a couple of things like the number of layers that are being used and how often I flip my canvas. And I flip it a lot. Flipping the canvas helps with fixing your own mistakes. I'm really glad with how Clip Studio is doing with their promotions, and I highly recommend the software itself. It had taken me quite a while to get used to it after having used Open Canvas 1.1 for about 9 years. It was the simplest of formats. It's so small of a program it was. This next piece here is a multi-layer piece. I did most of the work on one layer, just the character itself. You see the alpha channel through. But most of the others, they're done on a single plane, flat, rastered layer, such as I'm painting straight onto the color rather than onto an invisible layer. This was onto an invisible layer. Most of what I've posted on my Twitter was onto a clear alpha layer, like this, and I add the gray background for a easy neutral value that you can quickly paint shadows and highlights. What more can I say about features in Clip Studio? I've had this software for about 5 years, and it took me months to get to learn the program, and I'm really loving it. I love making brushes with it, but I had put a lot of pressure on myself to learn how to use the software, as I was eager to really amp up my game. But I was making expectations of myself, so I kept getting disappointed. It wasn't until I started messing around with all the brushes and just fiddling about, trying to figure out what does what, that I really started to get a better feel for it. What more can I say? There's the aspect of why I paint in black and white. That's an interesting tone. Well, color can be very distracting, and I'm putting a lot of focus on practicing my shading, just the shading, just because light and shadow show volume. They show depth. And that's what I'm putting all my focus on. Color, I can do color. I can paint color anytime. But it's not what I'm looking to do right now. I can do coloring for other line art for and all sorts of different ways, but what I'm trying to focus is my rendering capabilities. So there's a lot of studies on light, studies on anatomy, on gesture, and I believe this comes up to the topic of art block. Now, just about any artist will have or experience art block and understand the suffering through it, that you can't get anything out and you don't know what to do. And I've got a couple rules of thumb to go by just to overcome art block. I've been writing this very often with my Twitter, and this is the reason why. Stay zen. It's just needing to flow. If nothing's coming out, accept it. It's not the moment for something to come out. Be moved. Let yourself just drift into what you're getting into. If you feel like it, go ahead. If nothing's coming out, it will come out later. And have that anticipation for when it does. And I always look forward to it. The other methodology to countering art block is when you don't know what to do, go back to basics. Do your basic study forms, circles, spheres, cubes, cylinders, cones. Just practice rendering that. Sketch gestures. Do your practice on feet. Hands and feet are a very typical problem with many artists. Oh, looky here. We have another painting straight up on a single layer. This was just flat. And I put down my black on here. It's not black. And my white is not white. Because those I keep on reserve. I take a few shades over and I start working with those colors. If I want to finish a piece and I really want to emphasize what's going to be the strongest black, then that's what I've reserved my true black for. Highlights in the eyes, that's what I reserved a true white for. But what's also interesting, when I've gotten to work around with keeping away from the extremes, was that the nuances, the subtle nuances, show a lot more. And in one of my recent pieces, I even lowered the contrast in order to see all the full range. Because if you lay down the full white and the full black and you excessively use it, it just gets bleached out and you don't see the full details. It's like you go out and the sun is just too bright and it's blinding you. This one was done with my white, so to say. It's not full white. It's just light gray, so light grays and dark grays. I really had a lot of fun working on the gesture sketch for this. I love when we have good fluidity and motion in body, and I really wanted to show depth. Oh, this one was another fun little piece. I just start up straight. I don't have any references. I just go with uh, what my head can picture out, and what the paint wants to do, and I just listen to the art, and it tells me when it's finished. I, I know. I just keep going until it tells me, "Oh, I'm good. Okay, sure." That's why I have a lot of unfinished pieces. So, as you may have observed throughout all these time lapses so far, it gets really janky with the starting sketches, and then there's lots of corrections that occur. And this is just the raw truth of how it's built, and how much paint over I do. Like how I didn't like the way eyes look, so I just blend all over where it was and just repaint it from scratch. I'm not a very efficient painter, illustrator, but I just persist. Oh, and as you've noticed, I've erased a section, and I'm redrawing it again, trying to look up my own hands for reference and feeling for gestures. Handy little tidbit, I keep a mirror standing on my desk so I can see the reflection and get a reference for hand poses through the reflection. Just looking at your own left hand and only that from your own perspective doesn't help very much. You need your mirror buddy. Ah, yeah, the contrast, and for some reason I just see much more in nuances when I've lowered my contrast. And it's the nuances, it's the subtleties that really make a piece. Ooh, another tidbit that I came about working on is working on my brushes. God, I love making brushes with Clip Studio. So I have my standard painting brush. It's an oil brush with a tip that I made myself. And I had recently did an alteration to my blending brush where I disabled the pressure sensitivity to the brush size. So it's just a straight, full size, no shrinking or whatever, just manual shrinking and such, because blending can also be useful for having fine edges. And I think it was a good move to make that alteration to my brush. It's been a lot of fun to start chatting with this new group of people, and that's the reason why I've done this set of sketches. It's for them, or in the sense of, I'll give it a shot. I just keep trying. Feel like that. No one asks me to, but it's practice, and every single bit is practice. And I enjoyed doing this particular practice also. Just continue painting and enjoy doing what you do. Enjoy how the texture comes out, and just working on a piece and seeing through the depths of shapes. And I love being in this mode, being in the mode of sketching, being in the mode of producing, and it just makes me feel alive. So, hello to everyone, and it'd be nice to get to know you all a little bit better. I'm really bad at small talk. Chat me up.